I recently got a message from Kathleen Pham about this doctor, Annie Andrews, who is going to be running for Congress in South Carolina. I wanted to show you how dangerous this person is, how medically questionable she is, and ethically questionable she is. So we don't get someone like this elected to Congress. This person could influence a lot of babies being mutilated, and she already is a cutter and a mutilator herself. This is one of her articles in PubMed that was published in the International I don't know, this whatever, obstetric gynecology. Anyways, the cost of Medicaid savings, the potential detrimental health impact of neonatal circumcision defunding. Now, this is all depending on these three randomized controlled trials in Africa that were completely full of scientific flaws. We won't get into the details on that, but they are literally debunked, and they're actually causing an increase in HIV in Africa because we're going over there and we're cutting African men in those countries. In fact, and I'll show you this later, 10 out of the 18 countries with data on circumcision and HIV show that the men with circumcised men actually have higher rates of HIV than the men uncircumcised, which is fascinating considering that the religion of Islam in Africa, they are typically more conservative cultures, and so therefore they have less dangerous or risky behaviors. So the uncircumcised men should obviously have, the mutilated men should obviously have less chances of getting HIV, although we can see that that's not really the case. Anyways, so the cost of Medicaid savings, the potential detrimental health impact of neonatal circumcision defunding. To project the increased incidence of HIV and subsequent costs resulting from the expected decreased rate of circumcision due to Medicaid defunding in one southeastern state. Okay, we calculated the heterosexually acquired HIV cases at current circumcision rates. Calculate age, gender, specific HIV incidence rate. We used the 2009 South Carolina Department of Health and Human Control reported gender rate specific HIV cases, and then here this is. We calculated the change in incidence of heterosexual acquiring among, assuming, here's that big point right there, assuming circumcision provides 60% protection rates against HIV transmission, which of course it doesn't. This is a ludicrous statement. Okay, but let's finish this. So assuming Medicaid circumcision rates decrease from current nationally reported levels to zero secondary to defunding, we project an additional 55 cases of HIV and 47 female cases of HIV among this birth cohort. So they make it sound legit. The total cost, but it's not. The total cost discounted to time of infection of these additional HIV cases is $2,924,400 for male cases and $17,717,400 cases for female cases. The cost of circumcised men in this birth cohort is currently reported at rate is $4,856,000. Conclusions: for every year decreased circumcision rates due to Medicaid defunding, we project over 100 additional HIV cases and $30 million in net medical costs. This is ludicrous. The government should not be paying to do quackery, quack medicine on children. It's just absolutely nonsensical. Well, here she is. So as a pediatrician for over a decade, that means she's been mutilating for children for over a decade. You've trusted me with your kids. They should never have trusted you. Now I'm asking you to trust me with your vote. My name is Dr. Annie Andrews, and I'm running to serve the South Carolina Low Country in Congress. Okay, join me at DrAnnieAndrews.com. Let's take a look at this. Okay, Dr. Annie Andrews for Congress. Oh, doesn't she look nice? She looks like a wonderful person, doesn't she? She's a violent mutilator of children. Could you imagine the things this lady is doing behind closed doors to these children while you're running and making a difference? No, you're trying to harm children. This is absolutely ludicrous. We cannot have people like this running for Congress. Okay, so let's play her little spiel
Some
here.
days in here can be pretty tough. I've seen lungs filled with COVID, kids fighting cancer, a teenager who'd been shot in the spine, and I was the one to tell him he'd never walk again. Since I was a little girl, I always wanted to be a doctor. My name is Dr. Annie Andrews. I'm a mom to 3 incredible kids, and even on the toughest days, I'm proud to call myself a pediatrician. But right now, I believe the failure of our elected officials to care about our children is the greatest threat facing our children.
You are the greatest threat.
Lobbyists or lawyers or million-dollar super PACs standing up for them. And that's why politicians here keep letting them down.
You're letting them down.
To gun violence, to the quality of their schools, to the very air they breathe. So I'm doing something that was never part of my plan. I'm running for Congress. But my campaign is going to be a little different. First, I'm always going to tell you the truth, even when we don't agree. As a pediatrician,
we don't agree.
Trust me to be
and you're not telling
honest
the truth
with them, and that's what I'll be with you.
Liar.
And how about this? We're going to focus on issues that matter most to the Low Country, like getting past this pandemic,
ending circumcision,
change, protecting our coastline, fixing our roads, and yes, tackling gun violence, which is now the leading cause of death in our kids. This is my Congresswoman, Nancy Mace, and she isn't focused on any of that. I don't know what job she's auditioning for, but it's not to represent us. She's on TV nearly every day, pushing extremism and conspiracy theories that only divide us more. She refuses to stand up to her own party and is more interested in being famous than effective. Look, I've never run for anything in my life, but I know this. Every election we say, wouldn't it be great if we could change the types of people we send to Washington?
Let's stop
let's
crazy people from joining it. Yeah.
I'm Dr. Annie Andrews, and for years you've trusted me with your kids. Now
Erroneously.
I'm asking you to trust me with your vote. I won't let you down.
You already let all those children down. All those children she's mutilated. Anyways, Kathleen Pham right here. Thank you. So I wanted to make this video before I get taken down because I did send her a message, and I doubt she's going to let me. I'll probably be blocked very soon. Okay, so anyways, let's go over some of these statements that people have said. Daniel Bryce says, "I will destroy your campaign, you child rapist." Okay, how would you feel if this was the genitals of infant girls, 14-piece comprehensive circumcision set? How would you feel if you were a victim? Great point. Great point, Daniel. Okay. Kathleen Pham says, female circumcision is a federal crime in America. Why don't boys deserve equal rights? Doctors like Annie Andrews should be leading the way so that the new generation of physicians, like my 8-year-old daughter who wants to be a pediatrician, doesn't have to be subjected to mutilating healthy, non-consenting infants. I've already taught my doctor that she can be a conscientious objector, that she won't have to perform unnecessary surgeries and helpless, unhealthy babies. That is leadership, right? Okay, so as you can see, we're probably not going to be the most relevant selectors. Some people are going to filter out. You know, this Facebook censorship, just determining what I get to read is absolutely nonsensical. This candidate went to medical school and let the establishment convince her to mutilate healthy baby boys. Does medical school erase your critical thinking skills? This is horrific. Do not elect this Dr. Frankenstein. She cut her own son, and she convinced you to let her cut yours? Wow, what a great statement. Lisa S. Mooney, who was blocked for whatever reason, or her replying has been deleted. That's very common. The cutters cut and run. They cut and run when you start exposing them. They're cutters. They cut and run. I also don't have any sons. I care because child abuse is everyone's business. Because Kathleen has a big, huge heart and is a wonderful human being. If you took my foreskin away, I would never have an orgasm again. Male foreskin is superior to female foreskin. Male foreskin has 20,000 nerve endings and multiple functions, including to protect against infection and irritation and to feel good. Female foreskin has only 8,000 nerves endings and has only one only one purpose, to feel good. Boys deserve equal rights, whether they're born in South Carolina, Texas, Africa, or anywhere else. Don't you think so? Okay. That's the beauty of Facebook. It can still be heard by folks in South Carolina who I wonder what she said, probably something ridiculous. I love this one from Daniel Bryce. The only thing minor about circumcision is its victims, which is very true. This is a very traumatic, damaging, harmful surgery for absolutely no reason on the genitals of healthy children. Johannes Bush says, how could anyone trust in someone who decided to ignore all the findings of today's medical art when it comes to foreskin amputation in helpless babies? How can anyone trust in a genital mutilator? You, ma'am, are a quack. Shame on you. Let's see how many. Just got one laugh. Look at all these great people here. Let's add friends while we can. Sorry, a little side step there. Okay. Justin, I don't know how you know Dr. Andrews, but she encourages the surgical removal of healthy tissue from newborn males within days of their birth for no medical reasons, often without using anesthesia. Thought you should know. I am providing one patient's very personal experience of living with his foreskin for 28 years and then getting circumcised. This is medically valuable information. I am not basing my entire stance on it. Men can still achieve orgasms with the foreskin, but the moments leading up to climax are a completely different experience. Ask your urology colleagues about the prevalence of erectile dysfunction in American men and men from countries with high rates of circumcision. These countries with the highest rates of Viagra sales are the countries that routinely practice male circumcision. Ultimately, you don't know how a child is going to turn out, what their aesthetics are, what their sexual preferences are, who and how they will choose to worship, etc. It's completely immoral to decide for another person, especially a newborn, that they are doomed to experience life with parts of their body missing simply because you are their parent. Parents say that if circumcision was bad, then doctors wouldn't do it. However, doctors say it's up to the parents. If the doctors would tell the truth, that it has no medical benefit, circumcision would end in 1 or 2 generations. Male foreskin is superior to female foreskin, yet it has more than double the nerve endings and has more functions. Yet female circumcision is a federal crime in America. Don't boys deserve equal rights? I agree with you that elective circumcision, that routine circumcision is elective, since the foreskin is not disease. However, the person living with the genitalia is going to decide whether or not they want it, not the parent, the doctor, the rabbi, or anyone else. It is wholly inappropriate for me to let my opinions be known on this page. Annie Andrews is vying to be a legislator. The illegality of female circumcision wasn't finalized in the U.S. until January of 2001 by Representative Sheila Lee of Texas. Annie Andrews penned an article where she encouraged patients to circumcise their boys in order to reduce the chances of contracting STDs. This is absurd and dangerous given her position as a pediatrician. Only condoms and abstinence can protect against STDs. The U.S. has the highest rates of STDs as well as the highest rates of non-religious circumcision, by the way, in the developed world. Just forgot to put that. More condoms and safe sex. And she might be right about that. I don't know if it is worldwide. More condoms and safe sex, less cutting of babies. This is what your colleagues should be striving for. The Midwest reports the highest cases of non-religious circumcision. Michigan leads the world. Babies born in the Midwest do not deserve to be cut just because their parents have limited exposure to other cultures. Do no harm means to do no harm for babies and all people. I've taught my daughter that she can be a conscientious objector. She won't have to mutilate healthy babies. Annie Andrews and all her colleagues should be doing the same. You and your male peers may be fine now, but erectile dysfunction doesn't present until you're in your 40s or 50s. Take the protective sheath off something and there will be an erosion over the decades. Yeah, that protective sheath becomes the main sensory tissue because it everts, and then it literally is the middle half of the genitals. So it everts as a man gets an erection. So anyways, let's see who's talked here. Let's see, all these. Daniel Freeman says, why do you support the sexual assault, torture, and mutilation of the genitals of infant baby boys by doctors like yourself for cosmetic reasons? This is 2021. Children have a basic human right to intact genitals, and boys deserve the same legal protection as baby girls already enjoy in this country. Yeah, we need to get the Bloodstained Men crew on this page. Let's see. I don't even know what these people are saying. I know Jonathan Refern said to her, she's talking about fine with children dying as long as they are boys bleeding to death from circumcision complications. Okay, this is a good one. She's fine with children dying as long as they are boys bleeding to death from circumcision complications. He has no ethical standards whatsoever. Of course, you got people laughing at him. If you work with moms demanding attention, you are anti-Second Amendment. The goal is removing firearms from law-abiding citizens. Okay, I'm not going to get into that. Okay, but Daniel Bryce said she only wants to ruin their genitals and destroy their entire lives. Okay. Anyways, she is a child rapist with a knife. Child knife rapist. I support that statement. She also loved to rape children and destroy their lives for profit. Why do you think this is destroying their life? Because you're literally removing the most sensitive part of their genitals. Of course, you're harming their life for life, and then they're going to grow up and they're not even going to know what they're missing. Well, they will, because we're going to expose them. Anyways, she's a mutilator of children's genitals and a destroyer of lives. So this is Dr. Annie Andrews, and let's go into what I said to her, my statements to her this morning, directly to her, and I will go back and I'll probably respond into this sentence structure. I may even come back and do another video as the bloodstained men start to expose this quack. But let's go over what I read to her. I just wanted to make sure that I'm not blocked from actually making this video. I said mutilation isn't medicine. HIV is increasing by removing the friction-reducing part. HIV in Africa is more common among the mutilated, not less. The 3-week RTCs in Africa were a joke and a statistical lie with numerous flaws that created an exaggerated result, which was baked into the study. No legit scientist would accept such shoddy studies. We are campaigning against you, so no violent mutilators of helpless children ever get elected to Congress again. The VMMC, the voluntary male mutilation, whatever, the voluntary male something circumcision in Africa has decreased HIV, not increased it. This was from my actual webpage, Education Library, Medical Excuses, HIV, Epidemiological Medical Reasons Debunked, HIV Epidemiology, WHO efforts to reduce HIV transmission having opposite effect, women twice as likely to get HIV with circumcised partner. If WHO efforts have led to an impact on HIV transmission and maybe actually increased transmission rates, circumcised men may be less likely to wear condoms, motivated by both the fear of further loss of sensation and the belief that are impervious to STIs. If people are led to believe that circumcision actually is protective in the sense of conferring immunity, this could be serious counterproductive, result in behavioural disinhibition in circumcised men and their abandonment of other preventive medicine methods, wrote Cape Town professor Jay Myers in the 2007 South African Medical Journal article. Perhaps because of this, Myers' work began in women with circumcised partners feel twice as likely to contract HIV as women partners with uncircumcised men, and in 90% new HIV cases appearing in South Africa to 10, 15 to 24-year-olds are occurring in women. Okay, 10 out of the 18 African countries with data show higher HIV among the circumcised. Cameroon, you got 4.1% of circumcised men have HIV versus 1.1% of intact men. You have Ghana, you have 1.6% of circumcised men have HIV versus 1.4% of intact men. Lesotho, you have 22.8% of circumcised men versus 5.2% of intact men. Malawi, you have 13.2% versus circumcised men versus 9.5% of intact men. In Rwanda, you have 3.5% versus 2.1%. Swaziland, you have 21% versus 19.5%. So according to the USAID, there appears no clear pattern of association between male circumcision and HIV prevalence. In 10 of the 18 countries with data, HIV prevalence is lower among circumcised men, while the remaining 10 countries it is higher. Conclusion. We find a protective effect of circumcision in only one of the 8 countries for which there are nationally representative results are important considering, results. No consistent relationship between male circumcision and HIV risk was observed in most countries. 70% of Malaysian people with HIV are Muslim and circumcised, according to the Malaysian AIDS Council. Malawi circumcision disaster. Malawi HIV infection rate doubles. Following up the report that Malawi released on the 25th of 5 July that circumcision does not help in reduction of HIV, but exacerbates it. Reports have emerged that have agreed with the facts that we should have had earlier established. HIV exploding in circumcised Philippines. In 2010, Global AIDS report released by UNAIDS in late November. The Philippines was one of the 7 countries in the world which reported over 25% new HIV infections between 2001 and 2009. There are other countries that have stabilized or shown significant declines in the rates of new infections. Among the countries in Asia, only the Philippines and Bangladesh are reporting increases in HIV, and others are stable or decreasing. The Philippines has the highest HIV growth rate in HIV in Asia Pacific. Despite so Philippines has a high rate of circumcision. Despite circumcision being near universal, hasn't stopped HIV transmission in Israel. This is a study that shows that the circumcision rate does not affect HIV in U.S. men. Okay, this is another study. This was an article by male ethicist and PhD from Yale University and the University of Oxford, both Ivy League school. The fatal irony: why the circumcision solution to the AIDS epidemic in Africa may increase transmission of HIV. Okay, I'm not going to read this whole article, but I'm going to go through this. If you ever want that, this is all on my webpage. All on my webpage. Okay, a new study. This is a good one right here. This is very important because this is literally brand new, I think. A new study presented in the Journal of Urology confirmed that we've known all along circumcision does not protect men against HIV. The longitudinal study spanning 26 years evaluated the incidence of HIV among 569,950 Canadian males who were circumcised and compared them to those who were not. Most people don't know that Canada has a dropping rate of circumcision. I think it's somewhere around 30% right now in hospitals. So there's a very huge potential to compare both populations of intact versus circumcised in the country because of the dropping rate. They found no significant difference in the risk of HIV infection among either group of men. This study was the largest of its kind to determine whether or not there was an association between HIV and circumcision in the Western world. These findings contradicted 3 randomized control studies conducted in Africa, along with a recent analysis of 49 studies that have found circumcision reduces the incidence of HIV transmission by 42%. It was just ridiculous. The CDC, US CDC, and the American Academy of Pediatrics have based their circumcision policy on the concept that circumcision offers protection from HIV. This study showed that those policies have serious flaws, and you can see that her whole study over here, assuming a 60% protection against HIV, which is ludicrous, absolutely ludicrous. Okay, you can read more about the study here. Circumcision risk and HIV among men from Ontario, Canada. Okay, so I say stop with the lies and the quackery. We are developing a database of South Carolina media as we speak, and we are doing this. We will educate the media and expose your corruption. You're an abuser of children. Your time of anonymity with your crimes against children is coming to an end. Men are waking up in exponential numbers. You should have never cut our bodies, quack. You know the fake medicine. You know it's fake medicine, don't you? You want to keep the profits rolling. What you do to children is psychotic and stupid, disgusting and evil. You're an abuser of children for money and cultural myths. So, Dr. Annie Andrews, we will expose you, and we are running a campaign. I wanted to continue a little bit more, so I sent her a few more things that I wanted to read to you and put in this video. Okay, so medical reasons debunked. This is important. This is the statistical ridiculousness I was talking about earlier. So medical reasons debunked. HIV 60% statistical blitz, trivial at best. 60% HIV protection? Question mark. What is that? What that mean? What that really means, and what the circumcision industry, circumcision establishment doesn't want you to know. Okay, this is Brother K posted this on Thursday, November 2017. Exactly how disingenuous is the pro-circumcision claim that circumcision reduces the chance of getting HIV? Since 2008, pro-circumcision advocates rely on the BS claim that circumcision reduces the chance of getting HIV by up to or more than 60%. This sounds terrific on its face, but also raises a question, an obvious one. Compared to what? First, they inaccurately describe the protective value of circumcision as 60%. This is awful and it's false. The RTCs that show this are believed to, if the RTCs that studied this are to be believed, which you should not, you would see the 60% value is a relative comparative number between two already extremely small numbers. It compared only the difference in the numbers of infected men within the two sides of the study groups, not the actual risk of the average man within the study groups as a whole. There is a reason they didn't do that, or want you to know that number. Comparing that number to the real-world experience, the absolute value, circumcision has less than a 1.3% protective value over a mere 2-year period, and that protective value requires 8 weeks out of the 24 months to be spent in abstinence while the circumcision wound heals. Surprisingly, if you were just to spend 8 weeks in abstinence without circumcision, the protective value would jump from 1.3% to 7.7%. Or to compare it to the math used in the RTCs, a 8-week abstinence period once every 2 years will protect you 592% better than circumcision will over your lifetime of sexual activity. Regular condom use will protect you 7,384% better than circumcision. As you can see, comparing these numbers, I'm just woke up, so I'm trying to read these. As you can see, compared to these numbers, circumcision is a meaningless intervention. The pro-circumcisers are promoting something that will have with no real value at all. What is worse is the information given to the men fails to tell them that condom use would protect them better than circumcision. This is where the pro-circumcisers are failing them intentionally, and they are intentionally putting their young lives at risk in the name of a worthless sexual body modification. Condoms are 7,384% better than circumcision. By not telling men this each and every time, pro-circumcisers are condemning young men to not just unnecessary surgery and misinformation, but to risky lifestyle that could actually kill them. Thanks to James Ketter for the insightful note exposing the big lie. It ain't 60%, ladies and gentlemen. It's a measly 1.3%, a statistical blip. Okay? And we're going to talk about the studies. Studies of HIV used to justify MGM in Africa used mainly to justify American MGM. So what they're doing, they did this to really justify American MGM, and so they could justify money being spent in Africa to mutilate African men, which is a completely racist policy. They're not going over to Brazil and trying to circumcise Brazilian men, or going over to Japan and trying to circumcise Japanese men. Numerous numerous serious flaws in these RTCs included inadequate equipoise, researcher and participant expectation bias, selection bias, inadequate binding, problematic randomization, lead time bias, attrition bias, participants lost to follow-up, early termination, and failure to control for non-sexual transmission of HIV, all of which most probably exaggerated treatment effects. Here's the source. Let's look at that. Oops, who knows what's going on with that. Anyways, that was the Pediatrics, American Academy of Pediatrics publication. So I wanted to include that because I think that's really important, those 2 points, and I wanted to include that in this video. So anyways, Dr. Annie Andrews, we are on to you, and any pediatricians that mutilate children, that make fake research to justify their profit scheme and their sexual harm of children, we will expose you, and we will work against you in every particular possible way that we possibly can.
Break up the adhesions between the foreskin and the head of the penis.
Pediatrics, the reason we're circumcising is mainly because you feel more comfortable with a circumcised penis, especially since your other 2 children are already circumcised, right? Basically what we're doing is an elective procedure, primarily because you just feel more comfortable. In the clamp, then we clamp it.
organization behind circumcisions. Hospitals and doctors can make big bucks off the procedure, especially since the foreskin doesn't always go out with the biohazard. Sometimes it's sold for a profit.
Look at the data. It looks like there are some things that it does reduce the incidence of, but there are things that are incredibly rare anyway.
There are religious, ethical, cultural, and medical reasons to circumcise. For Father Kobe Johnson, despite being circumcised himself, he decided not to circumcise his 4 boys.
The concern of, oh, I'm going to look different than my dad, or I'm going to look different than the other guys in the middle school shower, it doesn't really come up that much.
To him, medical benefits didn't outweigh the risk.